She believed she would never find someone who could see past her son's wheelchair to the beautiful family they could be. This is what happened when she dared to hope for one last time. Her name was Anna, a single mother who had weathered the quiet rejections of a dozen first dates that ended the moment she mentioned her 8-year-old son, Leo, and his wheelchair. The statistics were grim, the loneliness was real, but this Saturday evening was different. What she couldn't know was that the man waiting at the table was carrying a hidden burden of his own, and that his 5-year-old daughter held the key to a connection that would defy every expectation. For Anna, love had become a calculated risk with devastating odds. Every date was a negotiation between hope and a harsh reality documented by researchers. Mothers of children with disabilities face frequent, high levels of stigma that shrink their social worlds and shatter their self-worth. Her life revolved around Leo. He was 8, diagnosed with spina bifida at birth, a condition that meant his world was navigated from the seat of a custom wheelchair. Their mornings began not with cartoons, but with catheterizations and stretching exercises to prevent contractures. Their budget was dominated not by vacations, but by copays for physical therapy and the looming threat of equipment repair. A new wheelchair cushion alone could cost more than her monthly car payment. Anna had been a graphic designer before Leo's birth. Now she freelanced from home during the hours he was at school, her career ambitions compressed into nap times and late nights. The annual cost for Leo's various therapies hovered around $60,000, a figure that made her stomach clench. Insurance covered a portion, but the rest was a mountain of medical debt she climbed alone. She hadn't chosen single parenthood. Leo's father had left when Leo was 2, citing the overwhelming pressure. A departure that statistics grimly echoed is far more common in families with special needs children. The loneliness was a different kind of ache. It wasn't just the absence of a partner, it was the slow erosion of her own identity. Conversations at school pickup were polite but distant. Other mothers sympathized but rarely invited. She experienced what sociologists call courtesy stigma, the rejection that spills over from the stigmatized individual to those associated with them. She was no longer just Anna, she was Leo's mom, and her life was perceived as a tragedy, not a story. Dating apps were a special kind of battlefield. Her profile was honest, a smiling picture of herself and another with Leo on her lap, his wheelchair visible beside them. The matches were few. The conversations often ended in one of 3 ways. Some men ghosted immediately after the photo. Some asked invasive, clinical questions about Leo's condition and prognosis. The most painful were the ones who made it to a first date, who would listen with polite interest as she spoke about her son, only to never text again. One man had told her, with a sigh of apparent regret, "I just don't think I'm built for that kind of responsibility." He had framed it as his own shortcoming, but the message to Anna was clear. She and Leo were a package deal too burdensome to unpack. Then came Mark. His profile was different. No brooding gym selfies, a picture of him laughing with a little girl on his shoulders at a park. His bio was simple: single dad to an awesome 5-year-old named Chloe, believes in pancakes for dinner sometimes. They matched. Their text conversation was easy, flowing from favorite books to ranting about laundry. For a week, Anna allowed herself to forget the pattern. She felt like a person again, not just a caregiver. The inevitable moment arrived. She typed, "I should mention, I have an 8-year-old son, Leo. He uses a wheelchair for mobility." She held her breath, waiting for the digital silence, the unmatching. Mark's reply came quickly. "Leo sounds cool. Chloe's obsessed with anything with wheels, tricycles, shopping carts, you name it. She'd probably think his chair is awesome." It was such a small sentence, such a seismic shift. He hadn't ignored Leo. He hadn't offered pity. He'd connected him to his daughter's childish curiosity. Anna cried, right there in her kitchen, tears of relief splashing onto her phone screen. They arranged to meet at the Maple Grill, a family-friendly restaurant known for its booths and noise level. When Anna suggested Leo come along, a test in itself, Mark agreed without hesitation. "Chloe would love that," he'd said, "more the merrier." The days leading up to the date were a whirlwind of anxiety. She second-guessed everything. Was bringing Leo to a first date unfair to him? Was she setting them both up for a very public rejection? She read articles by dating coaches who advised single parents of special needs, children to wait 6 months before introducing a new partner. She was breaking every rule. The afternoon of the date, she helped Leo pick out his favorite shirt, one with a cartoon rocket on it. "We're meeting a new friend tonight, buddy," she said, her voice artificially bright. "A little girl named Chloe and her dad." Leo looked up at her, his bright eyes missing nothing. "Is it a date, Mom?" Her breath caught. "Yeah, sweetie, it is." "Don't be nervous," he said, patting her hand with a solemnity beyond his years. "My wheels are cool, she'll like them." In that moment, Anna felt the full weight of it. Her son, who faced daily physical challenges, was reassuring her about social ones. The inversion of roles was heartbreaking and beautiful. As she drove to the restaurant, the research cycled in her mind like a grim slideshow. The study of over 4,900 parents that found mothers of children with disabilities had a significantly higher prevalence of mental health problems. The overwhelming financial burdens, the isolation. She was a walking data point in a demographic defined by stress. She parallel parked, her hands trembling on the wheel. She looked at Leo in the rearview mirror, strapped securely in his adaptive car seat. "Ready, Explorer?" "Ready," he said, giving her a thumbs up. She transferred him to his wheelchair, the practiced motions smooth but heavy with emotion. This was it, the moment of truth. They were a package deal, her greatest joy and, in the cruel calculus of the dating world, her greatest liability. She pushed him toward the warm glow of the restaurant entrance, her heart hammering against her ribs. She could see figures inside, the blur of a Saturday evening crowd. Somewhere in there, Mark and Chloe were waiting. Would he see her, or would he see the wheelchair, the complication, the burden? She took a deep breath, her hand on the door handle. This was the gamble, to hope that someone could see past the chair to the funny, resilient boy within. To believe that a man could want not just her, but the complicated, beautiful, exhausting life she came with. She opened the door, and the noise of the restaurant washed over them. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for a man with a little girl, and then she saw them. Mark was already standing, a warm, genuine smile breaking across his face as he waved them over. But it was Chloe who moved first, a pink blur of excitement who bypassed the adults entirely and went straight to the source of her curiosity. She skidded to a stop in front of Leo's wheelchair, her eyes wide. "Whoa," she breathed, her voice carrying in the brief lull of nearby conversation. "Cool wheels, does it go fast?" Anna's breath hitched. This was the moment, the point where other children stared or pointed or asked their parents loud, uncomfortable questions. Leo, however, grinned. He was used to being a curiosity. Kindness was rarer. "It can," he said proudly, "especially downhill. I have a racing stripe." He pointed to a blue decal on the frame. Chloe's face lit up. "Awesome, my scooter has a bell, wanna see?" Before anyone could answer, she was digging in a small backpack on the booth seat. Mark reached the group, his hand extended not to Anna but to Leo. "Hey Leo, I'm Mark. It's really great to meet you." Leo shook his hand with a serious expression. "You too," he said, then glanced at Chloe. "Your daughter is energetic." Mark laughed, a warm, rich sound that eased the tight knot in Anna's chest. "That's one word for it." He finally turned to Anna. "And you must be Anna. You look exactly like your pictures, even better." His gaze was direct, kind, and held no trace of the pity or hesitation she'd grown accustomed to. "Thank you for inviting us," Anna said, her voice a little unsteady. "Our pleasure. Here, let me get that." Mark moved to help pull the table out so Anna could maneuver Leo's chair into position. It was a simple, practical gesture, but it spoke volumes. He didn't ask if she needed help. He saw what needed to be done and did it, naturally, without fanfare. They settled into the booth, Chloe immediately commandeering the seat next to Leo to show him her sparkly scooter bell. The adults sat across from them. An awkward silence descended, the kind filled with the weight of first impressions and unspoken histories. Mark broke it. "So Leo, Chloe tells me you're an expert on rockets. Is that true?" Leo's eyes, which had been cautiously watching the adults, snapped to Mark's face. "How did you know?" Mark tapped his own temple. "The shirt gave you away. Also, I may have done a little reconnaissance with your mom. She said you built a model of the Saturn V that's taller than you are. A real, unreserved smile spread across Leo's face. He launched into an explanation of thrust-to-weight ratios, Chloe listening intently as if he were describing the secrets of the universe. Anna watched, a strange warmth blooming behind her ribs. Mark was talking to her son, not at him, not around him, to him. He was engaging with Leo's interests, validating him as a person. This simple act was a foreign currency in her world of simplified speech and condescending tones. The waitress came, and they ordered burgers for the kids, salads for the adults. As the bustle of the restaurant swirled around them, conversation began to flow. They talked about inconsequential things, the terrible movie Mark had seen last week, Anna's freelance project designing a logo for a pet groomer, Chloe's upcoming ballet recital where she was to be a bumblebee. But beneath the small talk, Anna could see the shadows. The way Mark's eyes flicked to Chloe with a fierce, almost pained protectiveness when she climbed down to show Leo how a plie worked. The slight tension in his shoulders when he mentioned managing the schedule. She learned he was a structural engineer. He'd been divorced for 2 years. Chloe saw her mom, Jessica, every other weekend and on Wednesdays, a custody schedule that mirrored the one Anna knew from her sister's divorce. It never feels like enough time, Mark said, swirling the ice in his water glass. You compress a week of dad jokes and bedtime stories into a handful of hours. You're constantly aware of the clock. Anna nodded, understanding down to her bones. The handoff hangover, she said softly, that low-grade dread that sets in on Sunday afternoons. Mark looked at her, a spark of profound recognition in his eyes. Yes, exactly that. Their food arrived, and a new dynamic unfolded. Chloe needed ketchup. Leo's burger needed cutting, a task Anna automatically began, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. But Mark intercepted gently. Hey Leo, you like your burger in triangles or squares? I'm a triangle guy myself. Triangles, Leo said. Excellent choice. Mark took the knife and plate, cutting the burger with careful precision. He didn't assume Leo couldn't communicate his preference. He didn't treat the task as a burden. He just did it, seamlessly folding the accommodation into the conversation. As they ate, Chloe's curiosity about the wheelchair returned. Can I push it? She asked Leo. Chloe, Mark said gently, that's Leo's chair. You need to ask him, and you have to be super careful if he says yes. Leo considered, then nodded. Okay, but only in the aisle and my mom has to watch. A negotiation between children, overseen by adults. Anna's throat tightened. This was inclusion in its purest, simplest form, not a classroom mandate, but a kid-to-kid agreement. After dinner, with the kids engaged in a collaborative drawing on a paper placemat, the conversation between Anna and Mark deepened. He asked about Leo's spina bifida, his questions intelligent and clinical in a way that reflected his engineer's mind, but his tone was never cold. He wanted to understand, not judge. Anna found herself talking more openly than she had in years. She spoke about the loneliness of the NICU, the fight with insurance companies for essential equipment, the silent judgment from strangers who saw only a wheelchair and not the bright, funny boy in it. She told him about the man who said he was built for that kind of responsibility. Mark listened, his expression growing somber. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? He finally said, his voice low. My reason for being on that app, it wasn't just about finding someone for me. It was about finding someone for Chloe. Jessica, my ex, she's a good person, but she's moved on. A new life, a new partner. Chloe feels like a guest in that life sometimes. She needs to see what a real, functioning, loving partnership looks like. She needs to feel like she's part of a unit, not a visitor between two separate ones. He looked down at his hands. I've been on dates, nice women, but with everyone I'd watch them interact with Chloe and I'd see it, the performative kindness, the way they'd talk to her like she was a doll, not a person. They saw a single dad as a project, a man to be fixed, a child to be won over. They didn't see us. They saw a checkbox, ready-made family. He made air quotes, his voice bitter. Chloe deserves more than that. She deserves someone who sees her. Anna understood with devastating clarity. They were both architects, trying to build a stable structure from broken blueprints. He was guarding against superficiality, she was guarding against rejection. Their vulnerabilities were different, but they were parallel lines, finally converging. "What do you see when you look at us?" Anna asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. It was terrifyingly direct. Mark didn't look away. "I see an incredibly strong woman who's fought for her son every single day. I see a smart, funny boy who happens to use a chair to get around. And I see," he paused, choosing his words, "I see a chance to build something real, something that isn't based on a fantasy, but on the messy, complicated, beautiful truth of who we all are." It was the most hopeful thing anyone had ever said to her. The check came, and they fought over it playfully, Mark insisting. As they gathered their things, Chloe presented Leo with the drawn-on placemat. "It's us," she announced. There were 4 stick figures, one with exaggerated curly hair for her, one with spiky hair for Leo. Between them, she'd drawn a large, detailed wheelchair with what looked like flame decals. Above it, in wobbly letters, she'd written, "Cool Wheels." Leo stared at it, then carefully folded it and put it in his backpack's side pocket. "Thanks, Chloe, it's awesome." Walking out into the crisp evening air, the goodbyes felt charged with potential. "We'd love to do this again," Mark said, his hand resting lightly on Anna's arm. "Maybe the zoo next weekend. Chloe's been begging to go, and I hear they have a new reptile house." "We love the zoo," Anna said, her heart soaring. "Yay," Chloe yelled, throwing her arms around Leo in an impulsive hug. Leo, surprised, patted her back awkwardly but was smiling. They parted ways with promises to text. As Anna buckled Leo into the car, he was quiet. "What did you think, buddy?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He thought for a moment. "Chloe is loud, but nice. Mark, he's okay. He didn't talk to me like I was a baby." High praise, indeed. That night after Leo was asleep, Anna stared at her phone. A text from Mark glowed on the screen. "Thank you for tonight, for you and for Leo. Chloe hasn't stopped talking about his race car chair. I haven't stopped thinking about you." She replied, her fingers trembling, "Thank you for seeing us." What followed was a whirlwind 2 months that defied all of Anna's hardened expectations. Saturday zoo trips where Mark naturally pushed Leo's chair up hills, pointing out architectural features of the enclosures. Sunday afternoons at the park, where Chloe would race Leo on the paved paths, her short legs pumping as she tried to keep up with his motorized chair. Wednesday night video calls where the kids would share their days. Mark entered their world with a quiet competence. He learned how to transfer Leo from chair to car seat safely. He remembered that Leo couldn't have dairy. He asked Anna thoughtful questions about her work, reigniting a part of her identity that had been dormant for years. He shared his own fears about being a good enough dad, about his career stagnation, about the haunting loneliness of his quiet apartment. One rainy afternoon in his living room, while the kids built an elaborate fort from blankets and couch cushions, Mark told her about the collapse of his marriage. "Jessica said I was too careful, too planned, that life with me was a spreadsheet. She wanted spontaneity, adventure. After Chloe was born, I just wanted safety, stability. We wanted different things." He ran a hand through his hair. "The irony is, now I have to be spontaneous every day." A sick kid, a last-minute work crisis, a broken everything. But the structure, the planning, that was how I showed love, by trying to make sure nothing bad could happen. Anna heard her own history in his. She had built fortresses of routine and caution around Leo, not to be rigid, but to create a world safe enough for him to thrive in. They weren't boring, they were battle-scarred. Their first real argument came unexpectedly. It was about accessibility. Mark had suggested a new, trendy mini-golf place for Chloe's birthday party. Anna, after a quick online search, quietly mentioned that it had steps at the entrance and narrow corridors. "Leo might not be able to do all the holes," she said, trying to sound offhand. Mark's face fell. "Oh, I didn't even think to check." "Most people don't," Anna said, the old bitterness rising. It was a constant, low-grade education she had to provide the world. But Mark didn't get defensive. He got his laptop. "Okay, show me what to look for. What are the markers? What websites do you use?" For an hour they researched together, finding a fully accessible sports complex with bumper cars and a mini-golf course with wide lanes. He didn't see her feedback as criticism, he saw it as crucial intel for their shared mission. In that moment, Anna felt something fundamental shift. This wasn't a man she had to protect her son from. This was a man who wanted to learn how to protect him, too. The relationship with Jessica, Mark's ex, was the next frontier. Anna was nervous for their first meeting, a handoff at a soccer game where Chloe was playing. Jessica was sleek, athletic, watching the game with an intensity that mirrored Mark's. When introduced, her smile was polite, but her assessment was swift. Anna saw the glance at Leo's wheelchair, the subtle calculation. After the game, as Chloe ran off with a teammate, Jessica turned to Mark. "She seems nice," she said, her tone neutral. Then, to Anna, "Chloe talks about Leo non-stop. She's drawn about 50 pictures of that wheelchair." There it was, not Leo. That wheelchair, the reduction of her son to his equipment. Anna took a breath. Leo's a great kid. Chloe's wonderful with him. Jessica nodded, her eyes already moving back to the field. "Just be careful, Mark. You know how attached she gets." The comment was a dart aimed with precision. It lodged in Anna's heart, the unspoken fear that she and Leo were a temporary disruption, an emotional risk for Chloe. On the drive home, Mark was quiet. "She's just protective," he finally said. "It's not about you." But it felt like it was. It felt like the world's skepticism had found its voice in Jessica, a reminder that the idyllic bubble they built was transparent, and everyone outside was watching, waiting for it to pop. The pressure began to manifest in small cracks. Anna would catch Mark watching them sometimes with an unreadable expression. Was it doubt? Was he realizing the magnitude of what he'd signed up for? Her old insecurities, fed by a decade of rejection, began to whisper, "He's a good man, but this is too much. He'll realize it soon. Jessica will make him see reason." She started pulling back. She canceled a weekend hike, citing Leo was tired. She was slow to reply to texts. She was recreating the distance she knew how to survive in before he could create it for her. Mark noticed. Of course he did. He asked her gently if everything was okay. She gave him the answer she'd given everyone for years. "I'm fine, just stressed." But she wasn't fine. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And as the days grew shorter and the first chill of autumn set in, it finally did. The call came from Leo's school on a Tuesday afternoon. He'd fallen during a transfer in the bathroom, and his wheelchair, a $6,000 custom-fitted piece of equipment, was damaged beyond quick repair. Anna rushed to the school, her heart in her throat. Leo was in the nurse's office, shaken but unhurt, the offending chair beside him with a bent frame and a shattered caster. The school was apologetic, but the reality was clear. They were liable, but the process would take weeks. Leo needed a loaner chair from the medical supply company, a clunky, ill-fitting model that would cause pressure sores if used long-term. The immediate cost for the emergency rental, $800 her budget didn't have. She called Mark, her voice breaking as she explained. He left work immediately, meeting her at the supply company. He wrote a check without hesitation, calming the furious clerk. He held Leo's hand while the technicians did measurements for the loaner. He was her rock. But as they loaded the bulky, temporary chair into her car, Mark looked at the twisted frame of the custom one and said, almost to himself, "This is a lot." It was an observation, not a criticism. But to Anna, in her state of raw vulnerability, it was a detonation. All her fears crystallized around those four words. This is a lot. He was finally seeing the true weight of her life, and he was buckling. "It is a lot," she said, her voice flat. "It's always a lot. This is what it looks like." "Anna, I didn't mean." "You meant exactly what you said, and you're right, it is." She turned away, busying herself with Leo's seatbelt. The walls she'd spent months lowering were rebuilt in an instant, higher and thicker than before. The following week was a tense dance. Mark tried to help, researching wheelchair repair shops, offering to drive Leo to appointments. Anna rebuffed him with polite, clipped efficiency. "We have a system, we are fine." She was pushing him away, a preemptive strike to avoid the abandonment she was now certain was coming. The breaking point arrived on a Friday night. Mark had planned a movie night at his apartment, a chance to reset. Anna arrived late, frazzled after a disastrous meeting with the insurance adjuster who denied a portion of the repair claim. Leo was uncomfortable in the loner chair, and Chloe, sensing the tension, was overly loud and demanding. During the movie, Leo needed to use the bathroom. Mark's apartment bathroom was narrow. The loner chair didn't maneuver well. Anna struggled to get him positioned, her frustration peaking. Mark got up to help. "Let me," he said, reaching for the chair. "I've got it," Anna snapped, her voice sharper than intended. "I'm just trying to help." "I don't need your help. I've been doing this alone for 8 years. I know what I'm doing." The words hung in the dark room, illuminated only by the flickering TV screen. Mark stepped back, his face a mask of hurt. Leo looked stricken. Chloe started to cry. The ride home was silent. That night, Anna's phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "We need to talk. Can I come over tomorrow?" Her heart turned to stone. This was it. The gentle letdown, the "it's not you, it's the situation" speech. She'd written this script in her head 100 times. The next morning, she sat across from him at her kitchen table, coffee untouched between them. She sent Leo to his room to play, wanting to spare him the scene. Mark looked exhausted. "Anna, what's happening? You've been pushing me away for weeks. Since the chair broke, it's like you've shut down. Talk to me." She crossed her arms, a defensive posture. "I'm just being realistic, Mark. You said it yourself. This is a lot." The chair was a wake-up call. This isn't just Saturday zoo trips and funny texts. This is medical debt and broken equipment and fights with insurance and a lifetime of complications. This is my reality, and it's not fair to ask you to sign up for it. Mark stared at her, disbelief dawning on his face. "Is that what you think, that I'm looking for an out? Aren't you?" Jessica's warnings, the stress, the money. "It's only a matter of time before you realize this is more than you bargained for." He leaned forward, his voice intense. "Let me tell you what I see, Anna. I see a woman who is so used to being abandoned that she's trying to do it to me first. I see a woman who thinks her worth is tied to how little trouble she can be. But you're not trouble. You're the strongest person I've ever met. And Leo isn't a burden. He's an incredible kid who's had to be braver than any child should have to be." Tears pricked Anna's eyes, but she shook her head. "You have an exit, Mark, a clean one, a life with Chloe that doesn't include midnight catheters and wheelchair repair shops. Why would you choose this?" "Why?" He stood up, packing the small kitchen. "Because I love you, Anna. I'm in love with you, and I love Leo. Not in spite of his chair, not as some noble sacrifice. I love him, his rocket facts and his deadpan jokes and the way he looks out for Chloe. I love our messy, complicated, 4-person unit. I choose it. Every day I choose it." The confession shattered her defenses. She began to cry in earnest, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. "I'm so scared," she whispered. "I'm scared you'll wake up one day and regret us. I'm scared Chloe will get hurt if this doesn't work. I'm scared of hopping for something I can't have." Mark knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "I'm scared too, I'm terrified, but my fear isn't about your life, Anna. It's about losing you. It's about failing you. When I said this is a lot, I wasn't complaining. I was in awe. I was realizing the sheer magnitude of what you handle with grace every single day, and I was feeling inadequate. I was afraid I wouldn't be enough for you." The reversal was complete. They had been trapped in a mirrored prison of insecurity, each believing they were the unworthy one. "You are enough," Anna said, the words a release. "You're more than enough." They talked for hours, unraveling the knots of fear. Mark admitted Jessica had been pressuring him, suggesting he was moving too fast, that blending families was hard enough without adding extra challenges. He'd been internalizing that doubt. Anna confessed her history of rejection, the deep-seated belief that she and Leo were a package deal no one would willingly choose. It was the most honest, painful, and necessary conversation of their lives. They weren't just sharing feelings, they were sharing traumas, his divorce, her abandonment, his fear of failing as a father, her fear of being a burden. When Leo wheeled out of his room later, drawn by the silence, he found them on the couch, holding each other, both looking exhausted but peaceful. "Are you guys okay?" he asked, his small voice hesitant. Mark smiled, opening his arm. "We are better than okay, buddy. Come here." Leo maneuvered his chair over, and Mark pulled him into a group hug. For the first time, Anna didn't feel like she was balancing on a tightrope. she felt grounded. In the weeks that followed, they made a conscious decision to build intentionally. They started couples counseling to navigate their unique stresses. They had a joint, awkward but necessary dinner with Jessica, where Anna spoke openly about her life and her intentions with Chloe. Jessica, while still reserved, seemed to appreciate the transparency. The biggest test came with the holidays. They decided to spend Thanksgiving together, a blended affair. Anna's parents were coming, meeting Mark and Chloe for the first time. The pressure was immense. The day was a chaotic symphony of potential disasters. Anna's mother, well-meaning but from a different generation, kept asking Leo if he was comfortable in a tone that implied he couldn't possibly be. Chloe, overstimulated by the crowd, had a meltdown over the type of stuffing. Mark's attempt to deep-fry a turkey was ambitious and resulted in a small, contained grease fire that required the fire extinguisher. But through the chaos, something beautiful happened. Leo, tired of being the center of concerned attention, wheeled over to a crying Chloe. "Hey," he said, handing her his favorite fidget spinner. "It's okay, grown-up holidays are weird." Chloe took the spinner, her tears subsiding. "Your grandma asks a lot of questions." "Tell me about it," Leo sighed, with the world weariness of an 80-year-old. They retreated to his room to play video games, a united front against the overwhelming adult world. Later, as they washed dishes, Anna's mother said quietly, "He's a good man, and he looks at you the way your father used to look at me." It was the highest blessing she could give. After everyone left, the house a wreck of dishes and wrapping paper, Mark pulled Anna into a quiet corner. "We survived," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "We more than survived," she whispered. It was then that Mark asked the question that would change everything, not about their relationship, but about their future. "What would it take," he said slowly, "to get Leo a backup chair, a really good one, so you're never stuck with a loner again?" Anna laughed, a tired, emotional sound. "About $5,000 and a miracle. Insurance won't cover a backup. It's a luxury we can't afford." Mark was quiet for a long moment. "What if we could?" He explained his idea, a community fundraiser. He'd seen it done for other causes, a website, a social media push, local business sponsors. "We have a story, Anna, a good one. People might want to help." Anna was hesitant. The thought of putting their lives, Leo's disability, on display for public consumption felt terrifying and exploitative. "I don't want to be a charity case," she said, the old pride flaring. "You wouldn't be," Mark insisted. "It's not charity, it's community. Let people be part of the solution. Let them share in this good thing we're building." After much discussion, and with Leo's enthusiastic consent, "Can I pick the color? I want it to have flames," they decided to try. Mark, the engineer, built a simple website. Anna, the designer, created the graphics. They called it Leo's Wheels of Freedom. They set a goal of $6,000 for a quality backup chair and a van accessibility ramp. They launched the campaign on a Monday morning with trembling hope and low expectations. They shared it on their personal social media and a few local parenting groups. What happened next was nothing short of a tsunami. By noon, they'd raised $500. By the end of the day, $2,000. The local news, always hungry for a heartwarming story, picked it up. A reporter came to interview them. The story that aired wasn't a sob story about a poor disabled child. It was a love story. It was about a single mom, a single dad, their kids, and a community coming together. Donations poured in from strangers, $20 from a retired teacher in Florida, $50 from a college student who wrote, "My brother has CP, I get it." A local auto body shop offered to paint the new chair with real metallic flames for free. The fundraising goal was met in 48 hours, then it was doubled, then tripled. They raised over $20,000. Anna was overwhelmed, crying daily at the kindness of strangers, but with the exposure came a vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. The comments section, while mostly positive, had a dark underbelly. "He should be grateful for what he has. Why don't they just get a job and pay for it themselves? This is why we have welfare." The cruel anonymity of the internet laid bare the very stigma they were fighting against. And then the email arrived. It was from a lawyer representing Jessica. The subject line was chilling: concerns regarding exploitation of minor child and impact on Chloe. The world, which had felt so warm and supportive, turned ice cold in an instant. The email was a formal cease and desist. It demanded the fundraiser be shut down immediately, citing concerns that Chloe's image and participation were being used to solicit funds, creating an inappropriate association that could subject her to public scrutiny and potential stigmatization. Mark read it aloud in Anna's living room, his voice flat with disbelief. She thinks we're exploiting them. She thinks being associated with Leo's fundraiser will stain Chloe. Anna felt the old, familiar shame rise like bile. The stigma was contagious, just as the research said. It wasn't enough that she bore it. Now it threatened to spread to anyone linked to her. Jessica wasn't just being protective, she was acting on a well-documented social reflex, the desire to distance oneself from perceived difference to maintain social standing. "She can't do this," Mark said, anger replacing the shock. "This is our life. This is helping Leo." "She's Chloe's mother," Anna whispered, the fight draining out of her. "She has a say, and she's not entirely wrong. The internet comments they're ugly. Why would she want that for her daughter? So we just give up. We shut it down, give the money back, and go back to struggling in silence." They were at an impasse, the legal language a wall between them. Mark called Jessica, the conversation tense and loud. Anna heard his side. "That's not what's happening. You're misunderstanding completely. This is about community, not exploitation." He hung up, running a hand over his face. "She's insisting on a mediated meeting, with her lawyer present, tomorrow." The meeting was held in a sterile conference room at a family mediation center. Jessica arrived with her attorney, a severe woman in a sharp suit. Anna and Mark came alone, opting not to bring a lawyer of their own. The air was cold with formality. Jessica spoke first, her tone controlled but strained. "This isn't personal, Anna. This is about Chloe's well-being. Having her picture next to a fundraising campaign for a child with a disability, it frames her in a certain way. It invites pity. It associates her with a narrative of hardship. I don't want that for her." Anna listened, hearing the fear beneath the words. The fear of courtesy, stigma. The fear that her daughter would be marked by association, her social value diminished in the eyes of others. It was a mother's protective instinct, weaponized by prejudice. "What narrative do you think Leo has, Jessica?" Anna asked, her voice quiet but clear. "One of hardship. He's a happy, smart, funny kid who needs a wheelchair. The hardship isn't him. It's the world that makes everything more expensive, more complicated, more isolating. The fundraiser wasn't about pity. It was about empowerment. It was about saying, our community has our back." Chloe was part of that community. She wanted to help her friend. Jessica's lawyer interjected. "The minor child cannot consent to being used in this manner. The campaign creates an unacceptable linkage that could have lasting repercussions." Mark leaned forward. "Used? Jessica, Chloe drew the picture we used on the website. She asked us to put it up. She tells everyone at school about Leo's new race car chair. She's proud. She's not a victim, she's a participant. What lasting repercussion are you afraid of? That she'll learn empathy, that she'll see that families help each other." Jessica flinched. "I'm afraid she'll be labeled. I'm afraid other parents will see her as that kid who's friends with the disabled boy, and she'll be left out. She's already had a hard adjustment with the divorce. I don't want this making it worse." There it was, the core fear, that disability was socially toxic. Anna felt a surge of sadness, not anger. Jessica loved Chloe fiercely, and in her mind, she was pruning away a social risk. "Jessica," Anna said, choosing her words with care, "research shows that kids who have contact with peers with disabilities don't get labeled. They become more accepting, more empathetic adults. Chloe isn't being harmed by knowing Leo. She's being enriched. She's learning that differences are normal. That's a gift, not a threat." She took a deep breath. "But you're her mother. Your fears, however misplaced I believe they are, matter. So here's what we'll do. We'll take down every image of Chloe from the campaign. We'll revise the text to remove her name. The fundraiser stays up. The money, which is already far beyond what we needed, will still go to Leo's backup chair and the van ramp, but we'll use the excess, every penny over our original goal, to start something else. She looked at Mark, who nodded, trusting her. We'll create a small grant fund at Leo's school for accessibility improvements or equipment needs for other kids with disabilities. We'll call it the Cool Wheels Fund. Chloe inspired the name. She can be anonymous, but the good she inspired won't be. The room was silent. Jessica stared at her, her lawyer's prepared arguments suddenly irrelevant. This wasn't a defense, it was a transformation of the conflict. You're giving the money away? Jessica asked, incredulous. We are paying it forward, Anna corrected, because we were given so much, because the problem was never really about one chair. It's about a world that isn't built for everyone. We can't fix it all, but we can make one school a little better, and maybe that will help another kid and another parent feel a little less alone. Jessica looked down at her hands, her defensive posture softening. The lawyer, seeing the shift, began gathering her papers. My client will need to consider this proposal. After the lawyer left, Jessica remained. The three of them sat in the quiet room. I don't want to be the villain, Jessica said finally, her voice small. I look at your life, Anna, and it seems so hard. I didn't want that hardness touching Chloe. I wanted to keep her world smooth. I know, Anna said, but smooth isn't real. Real is messy and complicated and beautiful. Chloe already knows that. She lost the family she was born into. That was hard, but she's building a new one with us, and she's okay. Jessica began to cry, quiet tears of release. She talks about Leo like he's a superhero. She told me she wants to be an engineer when she grows up so she can build better ramps. I didn't hear the joy in that. I only heard the association with the chair. It was a breakthrough, fragile but real. They agreed to Anna's proposal. The fundraiser images were edited. The Cool Wheels Fund was established. The new chair arrived 2 weeks before Christmas, a sleek, titanium model painted with genuine metallic flames by the auto shop. Leo's joy was incandescent, but the more profound moment came at the school assembly where the first Cool Wheels grant was awarded. The principal announced it would fund a portable, accessible sensory playground module. Leo and Anna were invited on stage. As Leo wheeled up the new ramp to the podium, the entire student body erupted in cheers. Not polite applause, but genuine, exuberant noise. Anna looked out and saw Chloe, beaming and clapping wildly, her earlier stigma nowhere to be seen. She saw other children, including those who used walkers or had other differences, watching with hope. After the assembly, a mother Anna had never met approached her, her eyes wet. My daughter has cerebral palsy, she said. She's been asking for a swing she can use for years. Thank you for making her feel seen. In that moment, Anna's journey came full circle. She was no longer just fighting for acceptance for her own son. She had become a conduit for acceptance for others. The stigma she carried was being transformed publicly into leadership. That Christmas, they celebrated as a blended, messy, glorious family. Jessica joined them for Christmas Eve dinner, an uneasy but willing participant. She brought a gift for Leo, a detailed model kit for the Mars rover. Chloe told me it was the next logical step after rockets, she said, a tentative smile on her face. A year later, on a crisp autumn Saturday, Anna and Mark returned to the Maple Grill. This time, they were alone. They sat in the same booth. They ordered the same meals. Mark reached across the table and took her hand. Do you remember what you asked me that first night? What do you see when you look at us? Anna nodded, her eyes shining. I see my family, he said. He let go of her hand and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. He didn't kneel, he didn't make a scene. He simply opened it, revealing a simple, beautiful ring. Anna, will you and Leo officially become my family? Will you marry me? The tears came, but they were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. Yes, she whispered, 1,000 times yes. As he slipped the ring on her finger, the restaurant door chimed. They looked over, expecting nothing. But there, being led in by a babysitter, were Leo and Chloe. They were both grinning mischievously. You didn't think we'd let you do this alone, did you? Leo said, maneuvering his flame-painted chair to the table. Chloe ran over and hugged Anna tightly. He asked me for permission first, she whispered loudly. I said yes, obviously. They all laughed, a perfect harmonious sound. The manager, recognizing them, sent over a slice of cake with 4 forks. "On the house," he said, "for the family." They shared the cake, 4 forks, 1 future. The journey that began with a mother's desperate hope and a child's innocent comment had woven them into something unbreakable. They had faced down stigma, financial ruin, internal fears, and external doubt. They had not just found love, they had built a new definition of family, one based not on perfection, but on profound acceptance. Anna looked around the table, at Mark, her partner, at Leo, her hero, at Chloe, her bonus daughter. She thought of the research, the statistics on stress and isolation. She was a data point that defied the curve. She had love, she had support, she had community. And it had all started with a simple, terrifying act of courage, showing up as her whole, real self, wheelchair and all, and hoping someone would be brave enough to say, "Cool wheels, can we join you?" The world was still not built for them, but they were building their own world within it, one ramp, one grant, one act of understanding at a time, and in that world they were free. The story of Anna, Mark, Leo, and Chloe isn't an anomaly, it's a blueprint. It's living proof that the most resilient families are often built not from pristine circumstances, but from the audacious decision to say yes to someone else's messy, complicated reality. For every parent of a child with disabilities, the statistics can feel like a life sentence. The higher rates of parental stress, the staggering financial burdens, the social isolation that feels like a slow erosion of the self. But what Anna and Mark discovered is that data points are not destiny. They are simply the terrain you must navigate. The real journey is in finding fellow travelers brave enough to walk it with you. Their story challenges a fundamental social assumption that disability is a subtractive force, that it only takes away. But look at what it gave. It gave Chloe an early education in empathy that no classroom could provide. It gave Mark a purpose that extended beyond the walls of his office. It gave Anna a community that rose up when she dared to ask for help. And it gave Leo not just a backup chair, but a frontline defender in Mark, a sister in Chloe, and a living example that his mother could be loved for all that she was, not in spite of it. The Cool Wheels Fund at Leo's school continues to grow. It has funded not just that sensory swing, but adaptive tricycles, communication devices, and training for teachers. The ripple effect of one family's vulnerability has made an entire school more inclusive. That is how stigma is dismantled, not with grand pronouncements, but with concrete acts of inclusion that make the world literally more accessible, one ramp, one swing, one understanding heart at a time. Anna and Mark were married the following spring in a park, under an archway decorated with sunflowers, Leo's favorite. Chloe was the flower girl, scattering petals from her own wheelchair that she'd temporarily borrowed from Leo, declaring it part of the theme. Leo was the ring bearer, the ring secured safely in a small box attached to his armrest. Jessica was in the front row, smiling. The lingering question their story leaves us with is not whether love can conquer all. It's whether we are brave enough to redefine what love looks like. Does it have room for medical equipment and therapy schedules, for complicated exes and blended traditions, for the beautiful, exhausting, extraordinary ordinary of a life lived differently? For Anna, the answer was found in a crowded restaurant, in the eyes of a man who didn't look away, and in the voice of a little girl who saw not limitation, but cool wheels. It was a single moment of acceptance that became the foundation for everything that followed. Their family is a living testament to the fact that the deepest connections are often forged in the spaces where we are most vulnerable. That sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply showing up as you are, and the greatest act of love is making room at the table for someone else's whole, real, complicated story. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in second chances and unexpected families, then share it. Drop a comment below and tell me what resonated with you the most. And hit that subscribe button, because every week we share more real stories about the people who remind us that the most extraordinary lives are often built from the broken pieces we were afraid might be too sharp to handle. Until next time, remember, the world changes one brave, yes, at a time. Be the reason someone feels seen.